My name's Stephen Branigan. I'm from Amarillo Brewing Supply. I'm sitting here with Jared Reed of Longwood and Spoon Brewing. For those of you who aren't aware, Longwood and Spoon is a brewery located in Amarillo and hopes to open in the next year to the public, bringing handcrafted flavor to local beer enthusiasts. Jared, I'd like to thank you for taking time to meet with me. I meet lots of brewers in my line of work, which has taught me that there is no mold that a typical brewer fits into. So can you give us a little bit of background story, where you're from, education, work history, and maybe a little bit about your family?
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm from Amarillo, Texas. I've been here my whole life, except for 2 years when I lived in Houston. That was pretty crazy. A lot of different times in Houston. And then my education, I graduated from Caprock High School here in Amarillo in 1988. Attended some classes at WT. And then for a while I didn't do anything. Went back to Amarillo College, became a paramedic. Was a paramedic for a while. Decided I didn't really... I liked it. It just, the job market was pretty tough back then, so I went into the IT field, and I've been in the IT field ever since. So it's been a long ride, 20 years in the IT field. And I'm married with my wife, Kim Reed. I have 3 kids, Erica Reed. She's like Erica Apodaca now. She's been married. I got my son, Tanner Reed, my youngest daughter, JC Reed, and I have a granddaughter and a grandson that's coming on his way in June.
Wow, all right. Okay, so in my conversations with professional brewers and home brewers alike, I'm always interested in how that person fell into brewing. Usually it begins with an interest in craft beer. Can you tell us when you first had an interest in craft beer as opposed to mass-produced beer available usually at your typical store?
Actually, it's kind of funny. My interest in brewing came from wanting to brew a mead. I started researching a mead, and that was the first thing I actually brewed was a mead. And then I did that, and then I ran into Brent in a scouting event. We were in scouts together, and we started talking about beer, and we both kind of brought up the situation about how we wanted to brew beer, and it just kind of clicked. So the two of us got together. We researched it, right on it for a year and a half, did our first beer, and it has just taken off ever since.
All right. Well, some of our listeners may not have ever tried craft beer and may not really understand how it differs from the mainstream beverages produced by the big 3 American breweries. Can you explain the differences between the two?
Really, with craft beer, you get more flavor, more taste. There's just more to it, more control over the process. The big 3, they're concerned more about profit, and they use what we call a lot of adjuncts in their beers to get more sugar content, to make their beers cheaper in production, so therefore they have a larger profit margin. Whereas in craft beer, the profit margin isn't nearly as high because we stick to quality products, and it just takes a little longer, and it's just better beer, better taste, but it's just better all around. So.
Well, obviously, at some point, simply drinking craft beer isn't enough any longer. You want to take matters into your own hands. How did you first learn about home brewing, and when did you begin to brew yourself?
We first learned, like I said, about 2009 is the first year we actually started brewing, 2008, and we just decided we're going to try it. We wanted to brew, wanted something different, and like I said, we researched it for about a year and a half, looked into everything, all the options out there, and we went with our first beer was a double bock extract, and it was a great beer. Turned out really good, 10% ABV, and we've been hooked. Like I said, we've been hooked ever since.
That's a huge beer for your first beer.
Yes, it was.
So there's 3 basic brewing styles. There's the extract that you mentioned, brew in bag, and of course the all grain method. Each one results in great handcrafted beer. Now I know that each one of these categories can be further divided, but can you kind of give us an overview of the differences between these styles?
Extract brewing is probably the simplest. For people who are starting out, you start out with all of your malts are extracted. Basically, it's a powder like sugar, and you put it in water, in a certain amount of water. You boil it. You add your hops. There are even some kits that are just have the hops already added, and you just boil it, you cool it, bottle it, ferment it, and then from there you go. It's the easiest. It's the least time consuming out of all 3. The brew in the bag or the mini mash is the next step. It's not quite as intensive. It's pretty much you start out with an extract brew on something like a mini mash. Brew in the bag is the grains are all in the bag. You don't have as many vessels to deal with. You start out in your kettle, you put everything in, and you pull it out, the bag out with all the grains, and add a certain amount of water to get to your boil volume, and it's pretty easy. The nice thing is it gives you more control over your recipe because you are using grain, and it's pretty much an all-grain system. We do all-grain. You get a lot more control over your recipe. You can change things up quite well. It's a little more difficult. Your temperatures are a lot more concise. If your temperatures are off, you don't pull out the right sugars, you don't pull out enough sugars, your amount of water, there's just so much more to it with all grain, and it does take a little more time with all grain.
All right, now a home brewer can start with any of these methods depending on the amount of equipment they start with and how much they're ready to take on. How'd you start, and how have you progressed through the various styles?
We actually started out with, my wife found once she knew that we wanted to brew, she found me for my birthday a brew stand that a gentleman had, and we bought that, and it's a 10-gallon system that we started out with, and we just went from there. It was real easy. We didn't do anything in the kitchen. I tried one time in the kitchen, and I made a huge mess. My wife wasn't really happy with that, so that's when we went out into the garage with our brew stand and just kept going. I made the addition of an igloo mash tun, and like I said, we just grown and grown and grown, and it's just one of those things you just love to do. It's easy to start out. You can start out in your kitchen if you want, but you might want to check with the wife on that first.
Well, as we've discussed, all-grain brewing requires more extensive and larger brewing equipment. Can you describe your current brew system to us?
Our current brew system is a 3-vessel system. It's 25 gallons. We can do 20 gallons at a time. We have our hot liquor tank, then we have our mash tun, and then we have our brew kettle. And we built it all by hand. Everything we have, we bought the burners, built it up, and we bought three kettles, and that's where we're at right now, is a 3-brew system. As we get going, we do plan on upgrading to a 3-barrel system.
Well, as an all-grain brewer myself, I know how much effort goes into each brew day. My wife Shiloh and I brew together. Without her, I doubt I'd have very much success. So, do you have help when you brew?
I do. There are some days I brew by myself. Brent Bullard is my brew partner. When he's available to come up, he does help on many of the brew days. We do a lot together, discuss a lot of things together. And it does help with the partner, especially if they know the process. There's not a lot of talking. You don't have to tell them what to do. Things just flow well with us, so it makes the brew day a lot easier. I do have people that come up to help me. My father's helped me. A few other people have come to help. And it's a lot of fun to teach them what you're doing and show them what you're doing. It can make the day a little longer because you're having to teach a little bit and slow down to show people what's going on, but we have no problem teaching people, showing people what we're doing. It's a lot of fun. And you do more cleaning than anything. That's been the response that I've gotten from people that have never done this before. Their response is always, I did more cleaning than we did anything else. And I have to laugh and say, welcome to the world of brewing.
Well, as you kind of touched on earlier, one of the best aspects of all-grain brewing is the amount of control you have over your recipe. So how do you get your recipes? Do you find them online, in books, from a fellow brewer, or do you formulate them yourself?
Any recipe that we've done a lot. It starts out with a lot of research. We like to stay as true to style as we can, so it takes a lot of research, a lot of online reading, books. We do talk to fellow brewers about what goes on, what style they stick with, where they got the recipe. And we'll find a recipe online sometimes that we'll like. We'll try it. If we like it, we'll tweak it. But we have made developed our own recipes as well. The majority of what we have has been the first 3 beers we found, the recipes, and we tweaked them to what we liked, how we liked them, and made them our own. And then we have a 4th recipe that we actually made that's strictly ours. We came up with it, we developed it all on our own.
All right, well, when I brew, I tend to focus on styles that are not readily available or well represented in commercial beer. But for most brewers, their brewing style is usually reflected in their choice in craft beers. So what might we find in Jared's refrigerator?
Right now, you would probably find I have Fireman's No. 4 Pale Ale. Their blonde ale, actually in my refrigerator. You'll always almost find a Shiner in there, good old Texas Shiner. And I also like to drink a lot of St. Arnold's that's because it's readily available. And if I can get anything from Dallas, usually from the Dallas breweries or the Austin breweries, I'll definitely have some of those as well. So.
Well, the BJCP, or Beer Judge Certification Program, lists 23 recognized beer styles. They originate from a variety of countries, and like many brewers, I'm assuming that you have a certain style that you lean towards. So let's talk country or area of origin first. Is there a country whose style you emulate?
A lot of our beers, probably Germany would be the closest, because we do have our Dunkelweizen, which is a dark wheat beer that is prevalent in the Bavaria area of Germany, and then we have our Kolsch, which is from Cologne. So we lean more towards the German side right now, but we also have, we're looking at stouts, so that's the Irish side, and then we have, of course, the good old American style beers. So we take from everywhere. It's just whatever you want, whatever we like, we're going to go after it, but we try to stay really true to that style of beer.
There are numerous distinct styles that may develop from any given country. What are some of your most commonly brewed beers?
Our most commonly brewed right now, we have 4 recipes that we brew. We have our Dunkelweizen, which is a dark wheat beer. It's our 501st Dunkel, and then we have, which is from the Germany area. Then we have our American wheat, our 6th Street Rockin' wheat, and then we have a Belgian wit, our Texas Witty Twister, and then we have our Kolsch, our Amarillo Sunrise Kolsch. And those before right now, we're also developed. We have a chocolate Bock. We haven't named that one yet, and then we're working on a couple of Bock recipes as well.
Well, let's talk about your future plans. You're a co-owner and brewer at Longwood and Spoon Brewing. You guys intend to be a distribution brewery, not a brew pub. Can you explain the differences between the two platforms?
For us as a distribution brewery, we concentrate more on the brewing side than we do on the food side. A brew pub has the addition of restaurants they have to overcome, which is not a bad thing. But we also have a little more leeway on our distribution. Production numbers, we pretty much can distribute everything that we have. Our on-site sales are limited to so much beer per year on our production that we can have on-site consumption, but nothing can be taken home. A brew pub, they've kind of got nice of all the worlds. They can have on-site consumption. They also have on-site sales that you can take at home, and then they're able to distribute a small amount of their volume out to other people at this time.
So as you make the transition from homebrew hobbyist to for-profit business owner, what are your key focuses? What's required of you to make this business model a success?
Our main focus has always been quality. It's quality, quality, quality. Can we reproduce the same beer over and over and over and it not change the taste, the smell, the ABV, everything stays as close as possible. And we've accomplished that with our beers. We always work for that. So that's one of the things we look for. That's what's going to make this business model work is the quality in the beer. It's not about the quantity, it's the quality. People want a good quality beer with flavor. It's just so much more than what you can get from, say, the big three. The big three are trying, but it's nothing. Like I said, they're more about volume than they are about quality. So we have a much better edge over them. We can stay better on the edge. As new different styles come out that people like, we can convert to that style pretty quick, make up a recipe, get it out there, and keep that quality. So that's what we're after.
So you and Brent have saddled yourselves with a task. Brew consistent, high-quality beer, create a market for that beer, then sustain and hopefully expand that market. How do you plan to achieve this in Amarillo, where such an endeavor is more or less uncharted territory?
One of the things we've done is we've developed a pretty good following online with our Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Tumblr, Pinterest. We're all over the internet, and people follow us. We have a good following of people, good backing. Anytime we're at an event, like I said, we were at the National Homebrew Day this last Saturday, and we brought our beer out there, and people really enjoyed it. We had no complaint. It's just getting our name out there, showing people, letting them taste our product. I mean, we've got the whole thing set up without having to do a whole lot of work when we get able to sell. It should just flow really well. So the toughest part is getting out to the bars and restaurants where we have to get a tap. Most of the places shouldn't be too difficult, but there will be those places that are dominated by Bud and Coors, the big three, that we will have a little more difficulty getting in there, but I'm sure that once we're in, it won't be a problem.
Well, new flavor experiences are what drew me to craft beer. While most of us have our favorite styles that we go to, it's the promise of new flavors and rotating styles that keep me engaged in the long term. Can you tell us what your flagship styles will be and what some of your seasonal beers may look like?
Right now, we have our four beers that we have for our flagship. We're working on a couple more, and we have our wheat beer will always be there. Our wit, those two they go together well. They're easy, what we call our good crossover beers. So we'll keep those along. Our Kolsch is another good crossover that we've developed, so we'll keep that one. Our Dunkelweizen, I'm really surprised at Dunkelweizen, that a dark beer, that people, once their initial reaction, they taste it, and it's not a thick, heavy beer, but it's really light on the palate. They're able to drink it. They love that beer. So that'll be one of our staples. We're looking at doing a lot of seasonal beers, such as Oktoberfest, other styles, some one-offs. We will never brew them again because, well, they didn't really turn out the way we liked it, but it turned out to be a good beer. But you never know how those things turn out. Some of the best beers we've made have been total, complete accidents. So you never know when it comes to brewing that you'll have a good beer. And our flagship beers, like I said, we'll have 5 or 6 that we'll stick with all year long, and we may grow that as time goes. We'll just have to see how things go.
Well, I'm ready for local craft beer, and I think Amarillo's coming around to craft beer. How do you appeal to those who have not tried microbrewed beer?
One of the biggest things we do is just get out there. You can't be pushy. You can't be snobby. You got to talk to the people. You got to educate them. You got to talk to them what beers they normally drink, which around here is Coors Light, Bud Light, Miller Lite. And you got to give them a beer that looks similar, smells similar, tastes similar a little bit. But it's still a lot. The flavor profile is a lot bigger. The palate's a lot bigger. And you just got to get up to them and talk to them. You can't push it on them. You just got to give them that opportunity. We found that if you just talk to people, let them try it, and be honest with them, and not afraid of any negative feedback, or just don't push them. Don't be that guy that's just pushing that craft beer. We are kind of craft beer snobs, but we're also ambassadors to craft beer, so we have to be polite, and we have to show people that this is what good beer is about. And 9 times out of 10, you'll find those people will move over to a craft beer, and they're great. You might also find out that they like Blue Moon, some other of these, the big 3 attempts at craft beer. And they're still good beers, but we've got better beer, and we got better quality, better control over our beer than they do.
Historically, every town or village would have had one or more small breweries supplying local refreshment. In 1920, Prohibition, the 18th Amendment, devastated craft breweries in America. In December 1933, the 21st Amendment ended Prohibition. However, mega breweries were quick to rise in the void of craft beer. 2 generations of Americans were bought by advertising, kind of being told what beer should be. This resulted in an acceptance of mass-produced beer that focused on quantity and profit rather than quality and flavor. That trend's reversing, with nearly 2,700 licensed breweries operating in the States as of 2013. How can Amarillo locals support craft beer on its road to recovery?
The best thing that Amarillo can do is just, when we're at events, come out, support us. When we got our beer out there, buy it. Be honest. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. But you're going to get more flavor, more variety as this grows. You got us, Longwood Spoon, and you have Yellow City Co-op that's coming up. You got to go out and try it, and we're going to try it. But our job as a brewery is to educate people about these beers, get it out there, show them what they can drink, show them what it can go with as far as food pairing, and let them see that there's more to this, and it's not a fad. It's not something that's going to come and go. It's here to stay, and I believe that we're going to see that you're going to see a lot more local beers as we grow. Look at Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio. You're seeing a lot more breweries pop up in those places, and the big 3 are having a harder time getting taps in some places because there's so much local beer to support, and that's really the way it should go. You should support local. If it's great, support them. If it's good, support them. And if they're bad, they'll go away and they'll be replaced by somebody that will take that up and do better.
Well, Jared, I'd like to thank you again for coming by and taking the time to introduce yourself and share your insight with us. If anybody'd like to learn more about Longwood Spoon Brewing, they can go to your website, lwsbrewing.com. You also have a Facebook page. If you'd like to learn more about home brewing, we invite you to come to Amarillo Brewing Supply. We're your one-stop shop for all your brewing needs. Thank you, and please subscribe to our Facebook page and YouTube channel for more brewing information and interviews with Amarillo brewers.